I'm Scott Glennon.
Get off my lawn.
I am Steve Hamburg.
Did you hear me? I said get off my lawn now.
All right, Clint, easy does it there, big fella. This is Get Off My Lawn. Two old white guys talking about sports. Steve Hamburg and Scott Glennon. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing well, Steve. How are you?
Oh, not bad for an old guy. And thank you for tuning in to 98.7, slightly above average sports talk. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and do something or other on Instagram. I'm too old to learn all this stuff. And tonight on Get Off My Lawn, sports gambling. You don't have to go to Vegas anymore. You can just go to your nearest 7-Eleven and put your money down. I'm not sure this is a good thing, Scott. What do you think?
Well, we know owners like Mark Cuban are happy. Here's what he had to say.
I think everybody who owns the top four professional sports teams just basically saw the value of their team double at least.
You know, it's interesting to think about it. Gambling's being done anyway, so why not legalize it and make it uniform across the board?
Yeah, that's the argument that people are making. You can say the same thing about prostitution, about, heroin, about almost anything. It might make it a more interesting place to live in general. It would sound like, Las Vegas.
Well, I kind of like your ideas. Maybe you should run for president.
I'd probably get a lot of votes. I'd get your vote.
Definitely.
But, the idea of legalizing sports gambling, I understand it's there anyway. But, there's an expression, a lock keeps an honest man honest. If you make it difficult to break the law, people won't. If you make it easy, then you have a whole different story. I mean, if it becomes effortless for, let's say, a college ball player, which is really what I worry about, a college ball player throwing a game.
Like, I understand where you're coming from with that, but you have to if it's legalized, it can be regulated. Not only can it be regulated, but it could also generate income, the creation of new jobs, numerous ventures for companies, for instance. In 2014, the gambling industry brought in over $137 billion to the U.S. economy. I mean, that's not something you're gonna get. That's something that will be across the board if you can do it.
Well, that's a fair point, but at some point, don't you question what it's going to do to the product? I mean, imagine if gambling existed in '86 when Buckner let that easy play go through his legs. I guarantee you, if gambling was uniformly allowed, there would have been some conversation about whether or not he let that happen on purpose. And think about not the multi-billionaire players like Tom Brady, but think about the long snapper on a place kick, on a 3-point conversion.
I understand where you're going with that, and what I found interesting too is when watching the NBA Finals, that boneheaded play by J.R. Smith. I mean, I was talking to friends, and that was the first thing they said. They said, "Did he have money on the game? Was he throwing it?"
And now they're saying it, and sports gambling is either illegal or you have to go to Vegas to do it. But like I said, at the top, if you can go into any 7-Eleven, or your sister can go into any 7-Eleven, and if all your friends can go into any 7-Eleven, and each one puts down $1,000, $500, who's going to notice? Okay? It just suddenly takes the entire product and puts it into question, I think.
I do understand what you're saying, but I also like to think of the opportunities that are out there. Opportunities for the teams to increase their revenue, to get more money, maybe to get additional players or something along those lines. Now, I do understand that we as fans aren't going to get cheaper beer. I'm still going to be paying $20 for one, and maybe maybe a $15 hot dog. But hey, you know what? It's something to think about.
Exactly. I mean, how much money do you want them to make? I mean, these sports franchises are already they're printing money, let's be honest. The Yankees, a lot of these major sports franchises, they just make as much money as they want. How much more do they need to get more players? What, a guy has to be paid $1 billion a year to play baseball? A guy has to be paid $1 billion a year to play football? Come on. They're already making $1 million, $2 million, $10 million. How much more? I just don't see it. I just don't see the need for more revenue. I understand more revenue is good, but not to the point where you call into question the essence of the product.
And I can understand too. There's always an opportunity for corrupt politicians to take advantage of it. When has the government ever made anything better? Listen, Steve, we got to take a break, but when we come back to Get Off My Lawn, we're going to see how the NFL is doing everything they can to screw up a perfectly good game. But first, with the 98.7 update, here's Harrison Cancro.
I'm Harrison Kenko with this sports update. This update is brought to you by Miller High Life, the champagne of beers. You have the time, we have the beer. The Dark Knight rises. After being shipped from Gotham to Cincinnati, the 29-year-old right-hander is beginning to show signs of life. Harvey has pitched strongly in his first 3 starts and appears to be getting stronger. In his last start against the Pirates, Harvey went 6 innings, giving up only 1 run en route to his first win as a Red. The Reds and Harvey hope this is a sign of things to come.
I'm able to finally smile and just worry about baseball and get back on the 5-day rotation that I've done for my entire career. And, I'm really excited about the opportunity with the Reds.
Luck appears to be giving the Mets the finger. Mets pitcher Noah Syndergaard was placed on the 10-day disabled list for a strained ligament in his finger. Later the same day, the oft-injured pitcher, Steven Matz, was removed from the game with discomfort in his left middle finger. According to reports, x-rays were negative. The Mets hope that Matz won't have to miss time as their pitching staff can use a hand. Golden State Warriors take a 2-0 lead, winning 122-103 over the Cavs. With your sports update, I'm Harrison Kenko.
Welcome back to Get Off My Lawn on 98.7, slightly above average sports talk. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Get Off My Lawn is sponsored by McDonald's. I'm loving it, and I'm sure Steve is as well. Yeah. The NFL continues to try to make the game safer by passing new rules on tackling and kickoffs. It appears that they are having a rule that there'll be a foul for players to lower their heads and initiate contact with their helmets against opponents, as well as various other kickoff rules. It's only a matter of time before kickoffs are eliminated totally. What do you think about that, Steve?
Well, I think it's only a matter of time before we're watching touch football on the Super Bowl. It'll be great, maybe flag football to make it a little more interesting. Look, it's a violent game, and it simply comes down to physics, okay? I read a statistic in 1968, the average lineman weighed 256 pounds. In 2018, the average lineman weighed 312 pounds. Now, these guys are going, 440 you're doing the 40 in, whatever it is, half a second. These are violent collisions that are going on, and you can't avoid it. It's physics. Go ahead.
It's interesting that every time the NFL tries to introduce something with more player safety, they dilute the product. They end up with more penalties, more time with instant replays. It always seems to make the sport less exciting.
Well, just to make sure I sound like an old guy.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, Clint, that's right. Get off my lawn. In the old days, they used to practice tackling. They used to practice hitting and getting hit. They don't do that anymore.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because it appears that's also a product of the collective bargaining agreement. Practices have decreased, padded practices have decreased, so that also is affecting the product on the field when you're seeing, people missing tackles, trying to arm tackle, diving at somebody's feet, and it's definitely weakening the product that's out there on the field.
I think it's the rule of unintended consequences. I mean, they want to make the game safer by eliminating tackling during practice, and therefore you don't know how to tackle, you don't know how to get tackled. And that's really the issue. I think a lot of it started with the idea of launching, the idea of these guys acting like torpedoes and flying through the air. Now, when I learned football,
wait a second. When you learned football, were we talking with leather helmets, or what were we working at here?
We hadn't invented animals yet. No, we were not at that point. No, but in the old days, you watch the pictures of Butkus or any of the great players, even through the 90s. They never left their feet. The rule was you don't leave your feet because then you give up your legs as a power driver. Mm-hmm. Now these guys go flying through the air. They make lousy tackles. They miss. And in addition, they're using their head and their necks as a weapon.
Well, everybody's trying to make a highlight reel. That's the it's you want to see yourself on a sports update. You want to see yourselves on Get Off My Lawn.
Yeah, well, no, nobody's good enough for that yet. I mean, that's the issue. I think it comes down to that the game has so fundamentally changed that they're trying to figure out how to redo it. But the old clock on the wall over there seems to be telling us that we're almost out of time.
Well, so thanks for tuning in.
Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to follow us on Twitter.
Like us on Facebook.
And then, whatever it is you got to do on Instagram. I am way too old to learn all this stuff. I just can't do it anymore. Do you really understand Instagram? Do you really know how to do this stuff?
I said get off my lawn.
All right, Clint. Easy
Until
does.
next
Put
time.
the gun down. Well, that'll do it for us. This is Steve Hamburg.
And this is Scott Glennon.
Until next time on
Get Off My Lawn.